There we go. Hey, welcome everyone back to the podcast world here in lovely Vancouver. Today's going to be a great show. I've got a super great guest of mine, a very, very good friend that I've known for quite a few years now, and her name is Stephanie French. She runs an incredible business in town. We'll talk about that as we get going. I just wanted to say that thank you for coming and listening to my podcast. And if you have questions or you want me to talk about something and stuff like that, you leave them on my social media and I will get back to them, and the show will develop that way. I obviously want to be responsive to the people that are listening, talk about things that you guys want to hear about, and we're going to talk about a lot of shit that you don't want to hear about. So that's the great thing about doing a podcast. I get to talk about whatever I want. Welcome, Stephanie. How are you?
Hello. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you for the invitation. This is a beautiful space. You guys have done so much work in the last few months on creating a very inviting, very warm, very cozy environment. This is lovely.
Yeah, that's what we wanted to shoot for, in the sense of I've seen lots of the video podcasting. Some of them can be, pretty cool, but some of them can be really sterile. And again, people are maybe doing them out of their bathrooms or their basements or their living rooms, right? So when we did do this space was thought of like to be the podcast lounging area, and it came out real nice. People are enjoying it. We have a few people in the future that are coming to start their podcast here for the exact reason. They just love the space and how it's working. So thanks so much. And it was a lot of work. It's a lot of work when you're doing any business. You know that.
Any startup is a lot of work.
Or any business. Come on. How many times have you rebuilt your business?
Several
times. So yeah, we know what it's like. Yeah, it's a beautiful. The other thing too is a really beautiful, beautiful week in Vancouver. It's been some beautiful weather this spring.
We're very fortunate.
Yeah, we've been really lucky. April was rainy as hell, but May has been just beautiful and sunny, and it always makes for a much better time in Vancouver when the weather is good and people can get outside and wander around and enjoy the space that is Vancouver.
Okay, well, thank you for inviting me, and here we are. And you wanted to talk about.
I wanted to talk about our origin story.
Our origin, where we met, which was.
Now you have to do the years, because
safely to say over a decade ago.
Yeah, because with my dyslexia is always like, I don't know. I always think it's 1982 for some reason. Everything is a baseline of 1982.
Did you start having children around that time?
No, it was more like just 1982 was a great year, out of school, having fun, no children actually. So but. I know it wasn't. I know it wasn't that. So what was it, about 2000 and when did you start Chinatown?
It would have been early December 2012.
Yeah.
So
2012. So and the thing is too, is like, we'll do the origin story. I'll do mine and then you'll do yours, and we'll see how they compare. All I remember is I had finished doing a big stint of construction work. So I'd been working for, I don't know what it was, like 3 or 4 or 5 years straight. And I got laid off, thank God. And I just went on the UIC ticket and, was making good money with that. And I was doing tons of stand-up paddling. And I remember reading, what's the local food mag?
So Scout Magazine. Would have been the first online publication, news publication to broadcast that we were starting up this.
So then I read that. I'd been paddling, and I was reading it because it's a great magazine, and I find all the restaurants that I may want to go. The new ones and stuff like that. So, and then I read that these girls were going to be opening a pie shop, a place just to buy pie. Now, I know everyone has their likes and dislikes. Some people love cookies and some people love cake.
Yeah, cake people, pie people.
Mine has always been pie. I love pie. And so I remember I was out paddling and I kept reading it and waiting for the updates of when it would be open. And I just remember, obviously not exactly, but just remember reading it. I was out paddling one day and said, okay, I knew exactly where it was because it was in Chinatown, and I hang out a lot in Chinatown, good food, good people down there. And I pulled in to this one little door with a little table and a little chair and that little front thing you had. And I was like, I am here for pie. And then you guys had a bunch of pies. You had apple, this and that. And I think that day I had two different pieces of pie, and you guys make your own coffee and you roast your own beans. And I had that. And we probably talked a little bit. And then I was like, well, this is pretty cool. And then I left. And then the next time I went paddling, it would be right there after paddling.
How convenient.
For coffee and pie. And
new location.
Yeah, by the time spring and summer rolled around, I was there how many times a week?
You were right. You're a regular. I mean, that's the joy of having a small business. You know, we were in the business every day, 6 days a week. And when you say little, let me share with you, like it was 12 feet wide and 30 feet deep, right? So very petite little shop in Chinatown. We started very, very small. You're right. We had one table. It was 4 by 6, 4 by 6, 3 by 6, 3 by 4, 3 by 4. And we made the pies in the morning on that table, and then cleaned up, tidied up, put everything away, and then turned that table into a display and sold the pies off that table, the same very table. So, the space was very well designed for a very small, very niche product. We just sold pie, and then we had pour over. So at that time, we didn't have the financial backing to buy an espresso machine. Yeah. So you would have had a pour over, and we roasted every couple of days on my rooftop in Kitsilano at that point, just up from the beach.
It was we'll talk about your new location that you moved to, but I have incredible fond memories of hanging out down there, and on that one little block, there was lots of cool stuff going on during that time. We had what was the artist name?
David Robinson.
David Robinson,
incredibly
was right
talented local artist who now is working in film.
Yeah, and he was there making great stuff. I have a couple of his. If everybody knows about him, and they do his skulls, and I got a few of his skulls, and they're amazing.
I own a
Yeah, and there at that time, it was just the start of kind of that renaissance in Chinatown.
Yeah, it was definitely going through a phase that I appreciated, and I look back on those memories, and I think of all the incredible people that we met, and it becomes an emotional roller coaster for us sometimes, especially when times are tough.
Yeah. I mean, I remember, like I said, I became a regular. So not even just during the summer. I used to hang out there probably too much, but I wasn't working. And so it was a good time for me because I'd just done a huge stint of work, and it was great.
But think of all the people that we met because of how open that door. We moved 6 days a week. We opened at 11 a.m. We made the pies in the morning.
And then sold them. If they were done, they were done.
Yeah. And, some winter days when it was raining, it was really difficult. Yeah. And I think about how hard it was to just sort of have that motivation to stay in the space, thinking, hoping that someone's going to come round, stick around till at least 6 p.m.
Yeah.
And some days we sold out, within an hour, depending on what was going on in the city and who was getting off the plane, and, just sort of whatever events were going on in the middle of the city. But we would sometimes sell out and go to the pub. We'd go to get a beer at one of the one.
But isn't that what kind of true entrepreneurship is? It is
being able to make those choices.
Well, it's having that almost unfounded faith that what you're going to do. And if you're doing, and I'm not gonna candy coat it. You guys make incredible pies.
Thank you.
And not even just incredible pies. Like I said, as you've grown your businesses, everything that you guys make is incredible. So it's not coming from a place of like, oh, I'm going to buy a Safeway pie for $8. That's not what you're buying here. You're buying, quality, handmade, incredible, delicious food that takes time for people to appreciate and stuff.
It does.
I mean, I remember going there, like I said, during the colder days, during the winter days, and hanging out for 2 or 3 hours with maybe no one coming through.
Nope.
But the thing is, if you know that you're producing something that's worthwhile and you believe it, not all the time. Business is a gamble, but that's what entrepreneurialism is.
Yeah, some days, looking back, some days we'd make $150.
Yeah.
But the rent was low. We were paying $1,200 for our space. Today, you can't even get a 1-bedroom apartment for that.
Yeah. It's a different world now.
Vancouver was a different place. The landscape, the environment of where we were. We weren't at that time. We weren't fortunate to have all of the condo development that's in Chinatown today, and the people that are there living and wanting to come out of their apartments for the food in the neighborhood. It was very different.
But I think what helped you guys, like I said, so this was like 2012. The whole world of that, more of the niche food market.
Yes, handmade.
Like at that same time, maybe a year or two prior to that, that's when all of the high-end pizza places were opening, that you were getting just 4 pizzas. That's all they made. They made the margarita. They made the pepperoni. They made the fungi. And
that was it.
And that was it. You don't like it? Get out, because that's all we're making is these. And that's what you guys were doing. You were making,
three flavors.
Yeah. Well, you're doing the apple pie?
We were doing apple pie, which was really easy to find apples at that time. We had really good climate, and it was just Chinatown being there, lots of relationships with the purveyors there, with direct relationship with farmers. So there was a lot of apples coming straight from the farms.
Yeah.
So it was really easy for us to access the best plums, the best produce.
Yeah, it was,
in the mainland.
Yeah, it's incredible.
People would at that time get out of the drive from the burbs even and come to Chinatown to buy their produce because it was so fresh. And then we would have chocolate pecan, which we've had on the menu since day one, every day unless we sell out. But it's a staple. It's a incredible pie, and then
it's fabulous.
Very southern, and then we would have a rotation of
you guys would do a special or whatever you had, like you said, the plum pies or whatever was in season. That's just the other thing too.
Crazy. No one would make plum pies at that time. That was like,
and that's the other thing too. You guys were doing, like, again, it's always can be said, but you guys have always done and have always committed to that, is that you guys only did seasonal fruits.
Yeah.
Ever like that from the day one. I remember sitting there, people coming in after cherry season, because we made unreal cherry pies with fresh cherries, which again, it's a different world.
No tin, no bucket, no just, mechanical devices.
Whatever. It was just cherries and a little bit of sugar and a lot of love. And then they would come in a few weeks later and go, "Do you have a cherry pie?" And you'd be like, "No, done." And they'd be like, "What? I want a cherry pie." Gone. That's what you go to Safeway for, is to buy cherry pie in December. Yuck. Mm-hmm. So you guys have always committed to that, which is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, we were nuts to do that. I mean, no person in their right mind running a business that wants to be successful at that time was making those choices in the Lower Mainland. It was very rare. We were with the internet. We were able to read about these stories of people sort of committing to these ethics, these practices in their own businesses, but it wasn't the most common. To have a bake shop that just did pie, and pour over coffee and nothing else. We didn't have ice cream. We didn't offer whipped cream. We didn't have at that time espresso based drinks. There was 15 coffee shops within a 5-block radius of where we were, so we were making pour over, which was also not huge in Vancouver at that time. Definitely happening in other American cities, but just like, what a really good cup of coffee, just pour over, and then no different sizes, just one size, like all those things that we didn't have the money to buy a fancy ice cream machine or the storage or the space to buy extra packaging that went along with each product. So it was literally you have the option to buy a whole pie or a slice, and if you call and reserve, you can get a whole pie. It was very simple, and we were reminding, and my sister Andrea, who I co-own the shop with, she reminded me the other day, because there's a lot of people coming out of the woodwork asking us a lot of business questions, because we're still here, and it's really difficult right now, the economics of it all. And we had a home cell phone. We had like 2 cell phones. We both had personal cell phones, and one of them was the shop number.
Yeah, I remember that.
Quite a few years. Yeah. Because the cost of internet in Canada and phone plans is
ridiculous.
It's like $80, $70, $80, $100 a month.
Yeah, well, we're the most expensive in the world. It's crazy. So
there's little things that we did like that. We only took cash and credit cards because the processor
for debit
was not open to debit at that time.
Yeah, because you guys, I remember when you opened, you had like Square.
We still have Square. We still use it.
But the debit wasn't sorted with them yet because it was so
released.
new.
Yeah, that was released.
Like I said, it's interesting when now that we're talking about it, even when I look back, is that, you guys opened this space on the beginning of this whole, food revolution, but micro business revolution. Prior to that, Square was not around. They were just brand new.
Just launched in Canada. Yeah. We had used it in the States. I think my sister and I were down in LA, and we had seen this product, and we're like, this is great. Yeah. Emailed them when we got home and said, when you guys come to Canada, tell us, we need your product, because to eliminate the nurses of the world, we couldn't afford the processing fee, the variance in processing.
Yeah, the variances and stuff.
And the rental fees that came along with that.
Which is crazy.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, and then too, at that time in Vancouver, we had Starbucks and everything, but still, what was coming out was that you guys did this Pie Shoppe. This whole pizza revolution thing was starting, and there was a handful of them then. Same with like the more specialty coffee shops, right? The ones that were doing like, I remember the first time I ever went to Revolver, right? Which they make great coffee and, super cool place. I love it. And I went in, and because I do like my vanilla latte because I'm a sweet guy, I like that kind. Yeah. And the girl was like, nope, no syrup. And I'm like, okay. And then I said to her, because I love this whole thing. I said, okay, you make me a coffee that you guys love to make, and that is your coffee. And she made me, an incredible coffee. And I've traveled a lot in the world, and I wish I could travel more. The one place I haven't gone to, but friends have, and my daughter has, is Japan. And I was excited with this food revolution because it was a very Japanese ethic. They have places there that a person does one thing their whole life, and they do it incredible. Well. And I loved that was coming to Vancouver, but it was coming to North America. Yeah. Now, in saying that, I mean, you guys were on the forefront, and you still are, and you still do a great job. As usual, though, in North America, it got hoard and bastardized, and then people started opening up shit, pretending to be, we're this, we're a micro this.
Yeah,
that always pisses me off.
Healthy dose of greenwashing in any industry, and there's marketing and advertising around, being making a product by hand and sourcing local. And I think, one of my favorite memories at the beginning was we opened in December, so there wasn't a lot of fresh fruit at that time. Nope. Everything had been kind of picked off the trees and sort of stored, but we started with buying for the first 6 months from a local supplier, IQF, frozen fruit. And the quality of that fruit is not terrible. It's just not great. The berries aren't being picked at their prime, and IQF meaning individually quick frozen and then bagged and sold frozen. And then you defrost that, you add your flavors, your zest of orange, your ginger, your cinnamon, your whatever. And then you turn that into a pie. So the next year, when the spring came around, it was really important for us to start developing those relationships with farmers. Yeah. And that's, for me, the highlight of this entire journey is the relationships that we've built with everyone we love to work with. And those relationships have changed and shifted. And, farming is difficult, agriculture is difficult. But at the time, there wasn't necessarily the words around regenerative farming practices, and there wasn't a huge focus on sustainability in British Columbia. I mean, there are a lot of people who today it's become common knowledge, right? But there's the greenwashing around that. Yeah, that's really hard for us. But is it really
being done? Like you said, I know that you guys were really doing it. I remember that first season that you guys came around. You guys were like, again, and it sounds funny because not that I've been there from the beginning, but I have.
You have. You've
I
seen
really
the
have.
development.
And you guys were,
and the frustrations that came with having to say no to the last person who walked in the door. And or
in the stuff that you guys really innovated. And again, I'm not trying to, just blow wind up your ass, but you guys innovated things, and then people saw that, and then, caught on to it, and then even bigger industries, such as, I remember first time coming there, and then you guys had made some rhubarb pipes, which is great.
All rhubarb, 100% rhubarb.
And it was like from East Van. And you were like, there's like all these people that have these and you guys went out and got all this rhubarb from East Vancouver.
Yeah.
And then the next step was getting honey right from East Vancouver.
Yeah.
Now I don't want to say, and it's really good for those people, but now, oh my God, finding honey from East Vancouver is the easiest thing in the world. It's such bullshit now because it's like, what? So I'm just saying, you guys were just like on the forefront of those things in how many square feet? Like
310.
Yeah, 310 square feet. And for me, who I love food, I've been in the food industry.
I know how good of a cook you are.
On the sides, as I call myself a cook. My wife will say I'm a chef because she enjoys me.
You are very talented.
But just to know that you guys were so innovative and so real at that time, and I remember we would have just bullshit conversations like this, because you would ask me, well, what do you think we should be doing? And I was just like, the one thing you got to do more is use that social media stuff back then and just tell people this is what you're really doing. You're the first, and be the first one to say it.
Yeah,
blow your own horn.
We're not very good at social media. I have to.
Well, you used to be terrible at it, and now you're a million times better.
Let's reflect on how Instagram had just started within the 18 months of when we opened, and we had just personally got accounts, not understanding the power of communicating and telling your story.
Isn't that funny though? Like, again, you're just opening and Instagram is just starting.
Yeah.
You're opening, Square is just starting. All these.
It was a perfect storm.
Yeah, it was great.
I don't take any of that for granted. No. Those were all products that were at our fingertips that were essentially free or at little cost that could be justified because.
Yeah. And back then, I remember the first time looking at Instagram. And going, I'm older, okay? I'm 61 now. So what was that? I was like in my 50s, looking at that, going, I don't even get it. I didn't even know how to get it on my phone. I'm so bad. Now I live on Instagram and TikTok, and it's part of our business too.
Yeah, you're a creative person, and visually, it's incredibly stimulating. Yeah. And before that, it was Flickr and products like that are a little messy on the back end and the front end. So when Instagram comes along,
Facebook was always weird to me because I just didn't want to hear about everyone else.
We tried with Facebook, but I think now it's part of a different
world
mosaic of who uses it and why. And I use Marketplace a lot, but for finding secondhand things. But
it's. When
to highlight Twitter, the use of Twitter at that time, I was like, I don't have anything to say. I'm not going to use Twitter. But we had created a widget on our splash page on our, the pieshop.ca and plugged in Twitter so that this little box would show up on the front page. You didn't even have to scroll down, and it would be our menu for the day. And we would write these almost poetry, these haikus, and we would just abbreviate the flavors. So we did that for years.
Yeah, I remember.
And so you could go on the website and be like, chocolate pecan, apple, plum ginger, lemon, buttermilk, custard. And then that was it. And then people knew so we posted every day in the morning, the menu. And that was a really good tool for us.
Well, I thought that was the other thing that I really enjoyed about your guys' marketing, in the sense of, obviously, I enjoyed your product because I'm a pie guy, so it was never ending and just honest to God, I mean, I can't in my mind. Maybe there was one, but I've never had a pie that I didn't like of yours because, again, the creativity is excellent.
You're very. I mean, the people we attract are very open to trying.
And so, all these different things. It's all good, right? But the other thing that I've enjoyed about is that your marketing, but the language that you use to describe all the stuff that you do is excellent.
Thanks.
It's really good. It's well written, and it's thoughtful, and it's not so much as it's marketing as it's really representing, again,
pretty real.
It's representing the product that you're doing.
Yeah.
Like, we just want to be real about the product that we're doing.
Yeah.
And I mean, we've talked about this, over beers and dinner many a times, that, we'd love to do a cookbook together. And, that's, one of the dreams.
Future goals.
Yeah. Future goals.
I agree.
When I get a little bit more time, and you get a little bit more time, but yeah, doing a cookbook, because again, your language about describing food is excellent. It's really good, and it gives you a really good picture of what you guys are doing, right? And I love creating dishes. When I was working in the catering industry with one of my buddies for quite a few years, and we were doing photo shoots, and I love creating a plate and food photography. It's so much fun, and it's excellent. So yeah, the cookbook will be in the future for sure.
Yeah, I think you sharing about the catering, having done a lot of catering in my career, big and small. We sort of took a lot of aspects of catering, a lot of aspects around the commercial kitchen, and downsized it into that small space originally, and known that at that time there wasn't Lucky's Donuts. Cardam's had just opened one location.
The whole donut thing. Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't have the Pinterest that we have today in these beautiful spaces. It was very real. It was rustic. We were using, salvage materials and secondhand things and thrift store things. Very Portland kind of vibe to opening up something. We had a home oven where we were baking 6 pies at once, right? So 6 10-inch pies at once. So we do quite a few bake-offs if we were busy throughout the day. And, we had an inverted, I thought this would be funny to share with you. We had an inverted pizza box that we started out with because we didn't have enough money in our banks to buy, in our account to buy, bulk packaging. And we also didn't have anywhere to put the packaging, in that amount of packaging, because, that's a lot. It costs a lot for packaging.
Yeah, and you got to buy a lot of it to make it cheap enough to afford.
Yeah, and there was a wholesaler, a packaging wholesaler, 2 blocks away from us in Chinatown. It's not there anymore, but that was a godsend because we would go down there, and I had a Vespa at the time. We would just beep, beep over and pick up, pizza boxes that are only an inch and a quarter high that didn't even fit the pies, and people still bought them.
Yeah.
And we stamped our logo on it. We didn't have any print material really.
Yeah.
And so, the guerrilla aspect of marketing and sort of that we embraced, in this whole culture of print and sort of just like having an actual beautiful box that has like a die cut aspect, all of those things that come with
you guys use
communicating your brand. We used a stamp that cost us, from BC Stamp Works, I think cost $20. I was like, can we afford that?
Yeah, and I remember you guys just sitting there for hours stamping the boxes.
Yeah.
Again, I go back to, and that's what true entrepreneurialism is, that you guys had an idea, and that idea was to make an incredible pie. So it
was about the food in it and what the food said, and
then you said, let's make this pie, and everything else will come, because that's what you need to do.
Kelly, it was a fucking field of dreams.
If you sat there, you could sit there for a year figuring out where you were going to get your pie boxes from, and no, we can't. No, you got to start doing.
We just started.
You just jump in, and it. Yeah. If that whole universe thing comes around. And things find you, and they find you, and you find it. And when we need it. And then all of a sudden it's there in front of you going, that's exactly what we need.
Yeah, it's been organic growth since the beginning. And, thinking about the old days and, how young and how naive we were getting into something. And, the grass is always green on the other side. We had worked for a lot of other restaurateurs, and we had worked on a lot of other projects and done a lot of catering before. So we weren't coming into this totally blind, but there's a certain level of naivety that you have when you're starting your own thing. And the hidden costs that come with starting a business, there's quite a bit to pay for that has to come from the product you're selling. So the simpler you keep it, we were inspired by a few other businesses we had come across while traveling and shop, frequenting in our lives. And we were just like, okay, well, if they can simplify a business model and learn about business through through simplification of selling one product and this niche product, like there's so much that can be learned from that. And just let me highlight, we signed a 6-month lease originally. And then we just kept signing these 6-month leases that, that's the worst business practice. I don't recommend that to anybody today. But
they wouldn't even give you a 6-month lease nowadays. That's unheard of, right? It's just
we were like, oh, we'll just take it for a month. We'll do a pop-up. Because we had, done a lot of pop-ups in the past. And worked with a lot of chefs. And so we were like, okay, well, we'll do a pop-up. And then, oh no, this is a lot of money to spend.
I remember on
a month. So let's do 6 months.
I remember too, you guys in that space incredibly did some unreal restaurant pop-ups with, what was the young man's name again?
So we had quite a few guests in, but one of my most favorite people, David Jackman, who's in Cincinnati about to open a restaurant.
Oh, is he?
And he's been doing pop-ups all through the pandemic.
A good reason, maybe the only reason to go to Cincinnati, because I've been to Cincinnati.
Yeah, so. It's changing, and him and his wife, and he's started a family down there. And
awesome!
He and his wife cook amazing pasta called Wild Weed Cincinnati. Awesome. And he's into foraging, and there's just a whole bounty of food down there.
But he did a pop-up in your guys' place. That
it was a chef's table.
If anyone went to it, if anyone that's listening to this later on that went to it, you will know that you ate some of the most
incredible food happening in Vancouver at that time.
I think it ran for like a week.
Yeah,
and I went with my youngest daughter. And I went with my wife. I went twice. It was so good. But I
can't remember how long you ran it for, but it was
I think it was like a week. It was like January. Like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah.
Like not a whole week, right? And
which coincided with the food festival in Vancouver where everyone has like cheap food.
Yes, exactly.
Whatever that's called.
Because I hate that thing.
And so this was like the
exact opposite.
Yeah.
It was you come in, you pay your money, and you got served what he was
chef's
inventing.
table.
Yeah, it was phenomenal. I wish I had a better memory. So I think he did because he had come back
really
from the
into
States.
Beef hearts at that time.
But he had come back from the southern states he'd been working, and I think he did kind of a weird take to on
Meadow in California. Yeah, he'd come back inspired.
Chicken with dumpling thing and some beef heart. All of it was out there, and it was phenomenal.
And the technique. Yeah. I mean, he's an incredible chef and good friend, and we stay connected.
Good man. I'm glad. I'm glad that he's doing good. Like I said, I'd been to Cincinnati with another career that I had drilling. The company that I worked for was just in
pre-pandemic.
Pre-pandemic was in Kentucky, just across the border. There's a river there, and you fly into Cincinnati. So I spent some time there, and then, you know what? It was, and this was a few years ago now. I'm thinking like 8 years ago, and it was changing then because one of my things when I worked drilling on the road all over. I would search out where to go eat. That was my job. It was
this will be on top of everybody's list when they go to Cincinnati.
There was some cool places there. There was a really great barbecue place that I found that was, again, doing that whole, they only did, on different nights, but they only did brisket one night, and then another night they just did ribs.
I love it.
And that's all you, and you went there and you didn't have to order. You just put your fingers up how many racks you wanted. It was 4, and you just walked in and went 4, and you'd walk outside and then you'd go, well, this is really weird because how are they going to know? And then 20 minutes later, 4 racks would come out with the sides they had that night. You didn't have any choice, and it was a flat rate. So it wasn't okay. And you came out and you ate the food and then you paid.
Fantastic.
And you brought your own beers. And all this stuff, and it was communal. There were just big picnic tables, and then we went a few times, and then I chatted to the guy that owned it. I said, "Do you ever have anybody walk out?" He goes, "Honestly, we've had a few people."
Well, you're always gonna have a few people walking out,
because they're just there to rip you off. He goes, but 99% of everyone then just comes in and puts down their money without question.
And that's loyalty. Phenomenal. That's being an honest customer. And I think that there's definitely a revolution happening in that particular city right now with food. And I think what what David and his wife are going to be doing.
Oh,
is going to
cool.
rock the culinary scene because there's only high end.
Yeah.
And then there's way more diners and
just fast food.
Yeah, fast
like,
food.
You know, if you've traveled in America and gone to any city like that, you know, it seems to be that break of like it's high ender, or then it's just, you know, your chain restaurant type things. There's restaurants when I go down there I've never heard of that have hundreds of restaurants in the States. So, you know, it's weird. But when I was there, it was transferring over. And, you know, it's like all cities, like even Vancouver, when you guys were opening, that's what was happening here. A lot of smaller restaurants,
25 seats.
Yeah, doing great food,
themed restaurants.
Yeah, doing great food and a smaller, drink menus, just some cocktails and some beers and local wines.
Yeah, not as popular at the time. It definitely was happening, but there was a lot more design elements, like going into spaces and a lot more sort of secret bars and a lot more pop-ups and guest chefs, and that was all sort of just starting.
Yeah. Which has led us to
where we are today.
Which is in the last year or this year, like depending on how you look at it. Vancouver has received its first starred Michelin restaurants, which 15
of them,
something like that. And that's great. I think it's really great for those people, and it's kind of good for the city. But again, I've traveled and eaten everywhere, and when I was younger, and when I say younger, I mean when I was like more in my 40s, I thought that was a real thing, and I hit a lot of starred Michelin restaurants.
Yeah, of course, because you want to check out what's going on,
and
right?
I was cooking, and I was learning to, and then I wanted to learn, understand what that was all about. But as time has gone on, I've really just faded away from it, and I have quite a few chef friends, and a few of them are just like, it's like winning the new actor or the brand new band award. It can be dangerous because all of a sudden you get a Michelin star, and the clientele that you service to get that Michelin star, which is all your local Vancouver people that were very dedicated to you, now becomes secondary because all of a sudden there's a flood of just this, what they call themselves foodies.
Yeah, checking it off. People like to check shit off the box.
And then you can't get into that restaurant for 6 months. And then you never go back, and you find another cool little restaurant. Yeah. And then, because, we will see in Vancouver, but the odds of a Michelin star staying open for a year are very low, because that's what happens to them. They get hurt by it more than it doesn't. But, again, Vancouver now has 15 Michelin star restaurants, which...
There is a perfect storm happening, I think. I've been reflecting or digesting the culinary landscape, the traditional form of, opening a restaurant today and what that means and what that looks like for your investors, your wallet. Yep. And a lot of the Michelin-starred restaurants have investors, right? Which is how you can afford to hire the staff, pay the rent, the leases. To there's multiple partners. There's shared ownership, and there's shares being given to the chefs, and there's a lot of the accounting behind it is a mess. But the more and more I sort of dig, and the more and more I talk to people about the Michelin stars coming to Vancouver, I was proud. I was definitely proud. I'm from...
Especially of the chefs.
Yeah, my sister and I are from Ottawa. We grew up there. We left when we were in our early 20s. And we came out here because of the produce, because of the climate, because of the skiing and the wine country and, the islands and sort of the lifestyle.
Yeah.
And then you've got these sort of... this fantastic organization that's been promoting chefs for years and how talented they are and giving them the recognition I believe they deserve. Yep. And then, of course, there's a lot of mental health issues that have arisen before the pandemic around, the stress of holding a star and sort of being a chef and what kind of hours and dedication is required. And then you have, the pandemic that's thrown every business model out of whack. Doesn't matter how big or small you are. Doesn't matter how you've been operating. The food costs and the lease, hiring, and the wages have all skyrocketed. So,
but especially the restaurant industry.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, if you were a mechanic, you still survived because the person dropped their car off, you waved at them, you drove in, and you still fixed their car. If you were a painter, you still went into that house, you wore a mask, and those people left, and you painted the house. Restaurants were shut down, and there was no way around it. And sure, a few, even you guys, pivoted a bit, but you're not a takeout restaurant.
No, but we became one. We installed
but
a
a
garage.
lot of them didn't. They just couldn't do it.
No.
And
of any of the restaurants that had recognition or give recognition, many of them had just opened.
And
were
crazy.
in less than, they were operating with less than a year under their belt. And so there was a lot of creativity that went into talk into things using like products like talk to take away and just sort of creating these picnic packs. And,
but it exposed in the restaurant industry, the pandemic exposed just, how difficult it was. And then servers and people in the kitchen and outside of the investors and the head chef, stepped away and then said, do we really want to step back to that? Right. I mean, a
lot of owners went into the kitchen and started getting involved with the day-to-day operations because they had to. They didn't have any staff. Staff were scared. They're living in fear. They had to go home and take care of their families. There was a lot of people who departed.
And so they got other jobs that weren't, were paying just the same or slightly better, but weren't in the environment. And if you've never worked in a kitchen or a restaurant, it can be crazy. It can be stressful for everyone, from the dishwasher to the head chef. It can be
if anyone had a dishwasher during the pandemic, I mean, God bless them.
So, the restaurant industry has changed for sure. And even still, it's having difficult times because, they're still having times getting employees because a lot of people aren't coming back.
Turned upside down.
They're not coming back, and it has to rethink it all.
And any good people that you had that were by your side who loved food and the camaraderie and the hours and the dedication and were, how infatuated you can be with being in the food industry. Like there's a love affair there that we all know, and you have to have it. If you didn't have it, I'm certain you departed. And then if you did have it and you stuck around, good chances are you've been burned the fuck out.
So because like I said, it's again, if you haven't been in that industry or you're not a chef or cooking things, it's akin to any creative activity. It's no more different than writing a song or composing a score or painting a picture or all of these things. Cooking food is pure creativity. And people go, well, is that, if you're just going to make pancakes? Yeah. If you're just going to make good pancakes.
But consistently making those pancakes every day.
And make them really good. And for every person that comes in goes, wow, those are delicious pancakes, to the most fancy piece of food you can create out of your mind. It's still creativity and it still takes that dedication. It's really easy to make bad food.
Yes,
and there's lots of bad food out there.
Lots of bad food.
But if you're going to make good food, even the simplest dish is creative, and you have to put your heart and soul into it.
And being efficient, and also understanding that during those last 3 years, the entire food chain supply and bringing a product that we, good quality product that we use on a daily basis, bringing that into the store into the kitchen to use has become 100% more difficult.
Yeah. Well, there's
months where you just didn't get we didn't have something. We couldn't get it. It wasn't available. And then on top of that, I mean, I don't want to downplay it or even celebrate it. I just want to share that, the cost of bringing in our tins for pie, so we'd sell, quite a few hundred pies a week, whole pies, bringing in those aluminum tins quadrupled in price.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And it wasn't because of the tin itself.
No.
It was because, and it had been explained to me a few different ways, but the best way to sort of explain it today is that the shipping costs and filling a container had changed so drastically over just the logistics of filling a container to bring product to the coast that you had to fill a container with X amount of product, and then the cost of that container had gone up. So not the tin itself, the manufacturer, or even just like the cost of goods. It was the distribution of
the supply chain.
Yeah.
During the pandemic, the supply chain of every industry took a massive hit.
And every product we use has a story like that, where everything we thought we knew, and we knew it wasn't sustainable. We always knew that, which is why we got into biodegradable packaging and why we got into making products with local produce and working with local farmers, and even the wine that we're working with today, wineries working with today. But every product we could write a list, and each thing has a backwards way of doing things now that just...
I've wondered, because like that's what it exposed. It exposed that one little hiccup in the supply chain of this worldwide supply chain, hurt everyone, and the prices has gone up. Is that and I believe it won't, but you would think maybe that would help us revert to more things being made locally, and because in the 40s or 30s or 50s, you didn't have a supply chain, because everything you wanted, somebody within your 100 or 200 miles was making it. There was a guy making pie tins, and there was a guy making this, and there was a company making these things, because that supply chain world didn't exist of we can make it in Asia for pennies. Okay, sure. But then it has to come all the way here on a ship.
Yeah.
And then it gets stored somewhere, then trucked here, and all those things. Oh, but those were already always so cheap. That's what the pandemic exposed. That boom blew it out of the market.
And people are so general public is, bless them, they're
disconnected from
incredible customers, but they're so removed from the logistics that a small business owner has to endure to create that product.
Not even just a small business, the world.
Yes.
Everything they have. Everything, their shoes.
We don't have, the smaller business doesn't have bigger buying power. We have no pull. We have no, there's not an opportunity to be like, okay, I have a storage unit that's like 10,000 square feet, and I'm just going to buy the year's supply of tins at this price. Give me a good price. We don't have that, right? So we're at the mercy of distribution. And so every product has that, but I mean it's daunting right now. I mean we're in a pickle, right? We really fucked ourselves.
Well, it's
really,
when we look back on it, more when a few more years have passed from the pandemic, and whatever the world looks like, because again, I don't even try to guess now, because who could have guessed that was going to happen? But we'll look back on it and go, some people survived, some people didn't, made us stronger here, made us weaker there, but it'll definitely give us stories to tell of to a young guy that's coming up and starting a new business, and you can go, you didn't live through the pandemic, you didn't, we've already sorted all that out again, and it'll be funny and funny, I don't know, haha, but they'll be good stories. For the Michelin restaurants, have you gone to many of them? I know that
I have. I mean,
I don't try to, because most of them I went to before they got their Michelin star. So I've been to Published. I've been to Published a few times, and what's the other one up on Main Street that got a star?
There's Bar Susu. There's Annalena. There's
been there. Yep. All of them I really, really liked.
Yeah, so Kiso Tanto, I think, also has recognition. There's, I love to eat out.
Me too.
Love to go out and be entertained and have, chefs cook for me and, choose off the menu a beautiful drink and then finish with a bit of scotch. I love to go out and eat.
Yeah, so do I. Especially being an ex-chef.
That was really hard, for a couple years. I was sort of restricted. I was trying to be frugal. I was trying to, support my friends, and I would go up to Dachi and buy some wine. And, but by the end of the pandemic, I had 400 bottles of wine that I didn't want to drink it with. I had a few parties. But I think the Michelin is an incredible. I don't know too much behind, if it will continue, if it's something that's going to happen again next year. I don't know the logistics around that.
I think the Michelin people, they work on a sense of a mass thing. So Vancouver had been getting reported that all these restaurants were doing really well.
And the tourism board brought it here, right?
And,
so it was
they blow into town because it's not super secret, but what I've read, it's more like between an 8-month to to an 18-month process, because they visit your restaurant more than once. And there's a lot of things that go on about it.
In secret, right? It's very hush-hush.
In secret to a certain point, right. But then they do tell you, because again, it's slightly changed. And then they'll go through a town that's, gotten to its point where they feel it's Michelin ready. And then they come back every few years, right? So they may not be back for 3 or 4 more years to do it, because they don't employ enough people, and there's too many cities and too many places for them to be all the time.
Yeah, I think it costs a few $1 million to bring it here, and I don't mind taxpayers' money going towards bringing.
It's great for the city.
Encouraging tourism, because the tourism has dropped off, and we've noticed that we haven't seen a lot of the. We have a unique group of people that are sort of regular tourists that come to town, and when they roll through, they plan their holiday going to Vancouver every summer, or they come through to see family on certain weekends, on celebratory weekends, and so we haven't seen a lot of those regulars that are for 10 years. You have a roster of sort of people that you just fucking love, and you don't see them, and you're like, oh my God,
The pandemic changed all of that, in the sense of, first of all, we couldn't travel, so then there was no travel. Then it was like, okay, you can travel, but there was just all the restrictions and the hoops you had to jump through, which was all good, fair enough, I don't care. So now they're all gone. But I mean, just in my case, we used to go to Seattle or Portland all the time.
On a whim, right?
On a whim, just boom, we would go. But it's been 3 years.
Hour and a half drive.
And it was just, now the habit has become, we're not doing that now, because it's
why?
Why?
I've been thinking about that a lot, and I have to ask you, Kelly, why are people not doing that? Because Seattle is so close.
And it's great.
I love going down to Seattle, see a baseball game, have some beers, rent a cheap
in a month and a half, me and Mitch are going to a baseball game. So
that's my favorite thing to do, right?
I think what it is that, that routine, and because it was a pandemic, it wasn't something else.
It was disturbed, right?
It was there was fear involved in it too. And so it's like, boom, I'm not traveling. And then we became more just in tune with maybe our own city. But for me, it was just my own neighborhood. I started using a lot more of the restaurants or the people in my neighborhood. And
I agreed. I did too. Yeah.
And so those are all good things. But again, it's kind of just pushing through that again and getting those travel legs good. I remember when you guys, the Pie Shoppe was booming. You were throwing them out and making your millions. But you traveled. You went to India for a whole month.
Yes,
right?
we did.
And you guys have done. You guys have done a lot. A lot of traveling, and you do it in big chunks like that, right? Mm-hmm. And so did a lot of people. And people just now are starting to get
we're starting to get into what traveling again.
Our travel legs again, because again, there were so many barriers, and then again, cost, and it's just the other way now. People are going crazy. My wife's trying to get to Salt Lake City,
which is a regular trip for her.
Yeah, just getting flights down there are super expensive and booked like months and months ahead.
As long as I've known you, she's been going down every summer.
Yeah, so
right?
I think it's just like, for people that aren't really motivated to travel, it's just not as easy or just not as straightforward as it used to be. Okay. But again, I think we just got to get our travel legs back, right?
I think that you're right. I believe that for 2 years we were, banned from traveling. Yep. And a lot of us reflected on the cost of traveling and what comes with that, and taking time off work, and it can be very challenging. Yeah. One of the aspects of traveling is that you have to do a bunch of work before you go.
You got it.
And then when you're there, you're either working or you're having a proper holiday, of doing fuck all. And then when you come back, there's a backlog of work, and you got to get back into the routine. That's really hard.
Yeah.
I also think that just like this idea of traveling somewhere else right now comes with an added cost basically need to double your spending.
Yeah.
Budget. So if you were going to go to LA and eat at all your favorite restaurants, which my sister and I love going down to LA for the weekend. We take off for 2 nights and we eat at all these our favorite places, and you come back and it's like, oh fuck the exchange.
Yeah. No, and I think
it's not in our favor right now. So a meal that would be regular $200 is $300 bucks, $400.
It's all of that. I know, like I said, and it's just getting those travel legs back under you. I went to Seattle a few months ago with one of my daughters to see a concert, and she had bought the concert tickets prior, like a long time ago, and something happened. The person that she was going with couldn't go, right? So she's like, "Hey, old man, you want to come to Seattle and see a band that you don't know?" And I'm like, "Yeah, down on that," right? And but in doing that, I said, "Okay, but let's not just go like for the band. Let's go for 4 days."
And we've always shared restaurants, right? In Seattle, you've told me about stuff,
and so we just said, instead of just going to see the band and then coming back home, we're just going to take a little trip. We're going for 4 days. Yeah. And, there's a hotel down there that I always use, and it's reasonably priced, and it's kind of just on the verge of the city. Yeah, it's great. And, we know all the restaurants and everything. The trip for the baseball thing is like that hotel has doubled price.
Yeah, and I think that's hard for people to come to Vancouver and see a Holiday Inn twice the price. And
yeah,
I also think that there's a backlog of obligations. So we've always been fortunate. We have a very small family. My sister and I we come from the East Coast, but our trips have always been really special for us, whether it's a trip home or a couple days in Seattle or a trip to somewhere like we've been, to Mexico, Japan, India, cooking at different restaurants in the world. And when we're invited, it's a work trip, but it's also a really great getaway and educational experience that comes with, being a chef in someone else's kitchen and putting something together and just getting out of your kitchen, it's great.
Yeah.
But there was 2 years where we weren't doing any of that. And we had a few guest chefs in our own kitchen, just like local stuff, which was great, and brought some young people in to have some fun and test out business ideas and just, sort of challenge their daily routine, because it was getting pretty monotonous there for a while. And now we have all these obligations where there's a flux of weddings, there's a flux of funerals, there's there's a lot of obligation to see friends and family that and bless them. We love them, but it's like we didn't see you for a couple of years, and now it's sort of backlogged.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
A lot of our free time is being spent seeing people that we love get married or burying someone that died during the pandemic,
or people that you need to see that you haven't seen, right? So
memorials.
I think it's all of that for sure. Yeah, without a doubt. So but I think slowly it'll come back.
And as you know, Vancouver has a lot going on. There's a lot more there's a lot of shows.
Yep.
They've always come to Vancouver. We're on this great circuit where we have so many good bands that come through, and there's a lot of local events happening again that have started up, and you want to go to them because the energy you get from being at a concert is
without a doubt
the best, right?
I mean, I've traveled a lot, but I can honestly say through all my years of travel, it's usually never in the summer in Vancouver, because I love
the summer is so amazing.
This city in the summer.
So this is what I'm hoping. I'm hoping
it's
that
just amazing. There's never a weekend, but never even a day that if you can't find something to do. That's why, even on social, a lot of times, it's that classic, "Oh, I moved to Vancouver and I can't make friends and there's nothing to do." Well, I don't know what Vancouver you're living in, because there is nothing but things to do. There's
always shit to do.
Always
it's
shit
the
to
best
do.
city for getting outside,
especially in the summer. Because even if it's rainy in the summer, it's warm. It's not like it's cold. Big deal. Rain.
And we're gonna have a really long summer. And one of my favorite things to do is grab a bottle of wine, some Dixie cups, and go meet some friends at the beach or at the park. Right?
There's beaches everywhere. There's beautiful parks. It's amazing. So all my travel has been more like fall and winter travel. The winter travel are going to, nicer places, Fiji or, sunnier in California and stuff like that. Or, if it's a fall or spring trips, then, I love going to London. I've been there in the fall and the spring is amazing. So, but
I'm really hoping that this summer really people are coming to Vancouver to really enjoy what Vancouver has to offer, because it's such a good city.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
I assume the Airbnb situation has just been turned upside down, and I don't know what an Airbnb costs these days to, respectfully stay in Vancouver, but
I don't know.
I feel like there's going to be some cool platforms coming about to do. Remember, there was couch sharing and there was house swaps, and I think there's going to be a real surgence of that, because that's such a great way to travel and being in someone else's home and being at a guest house where there's a room, and then you get to talk to the people or not, and just I've always done stuff like that.
Yeah, I think I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be
the alternative to a hotel because those costs are so high.
Yeah,
is basically what I was just kind of
I think, if the spring continues and the weather forecaster, which is the greatest job in the world because you can be wrong so much, but they said it's going to be, a relatively good summer and dry. Yeah. And I'm we're only a year and a half out of the pandemic, and I'm really looking forward to the summer. I'm going to be doing a lot of things for sure. And that's my phone ringing. There you go. Don't need that. That's great. Well, I think we've covered...
some cool stuff.
Yeah, just about everything I wanted to cover. I got to do my little plug here for my sponsor. This podcast has been brought to you by Get Ready Sound, one of the best locations to do your podcasts in Vancouver or Canada if you're traveling, or we can do it, over the internets. Great people, great sound, everything that you need to do your podcasts, you can get from Get Ready Sound. All your sound needs come here. Look us up on the internets. That's getreadysound.com. And I'd just like to thank them so much for sponsoring this awesome podcast. I'd like to thank you, Stephanie, so much for coming up and hanging out
thanks, Kelly. That was great.
For the hour and chatting about. We're going to do it again because I have my list in front of me. And we only got through 2 things out of the 4 or 5.
That's what happens when you know someone so well. And we're catching up. But also, with you building out this space with your colleagues here, like, I haven't seen you much these days.
It's been busy for sure.
And I don't know if you're stand-up paddleboarding these days. But
I will be, but I've been busy doing this. So it's
we'll have to get back to our routine and our regular coffee dates.
Back to our routine, and I'll have you back on the show maybe later in the summer. And like I said, we'll talk about all the other stuff that I wanted to talk about. But it was great. Just I wanted to talk about the Pie Shoppe and what you guys, especially not even what you're doing now, because the future is the future. You guys are doing great. You'll have a million things. But the start was an amazing time. And
it was.
That place in Chinatown and the fun we had there and how you guys were the start of that weird little micro revolution.
I mean, there was a lot of people doing cool stuff.
There was a lot of people, but you guys were on the forefront. Yeah. I'd already said that you guys were doing great things.
I think it was a different way to approach business, and we've definitely I loved our start, a million ways to do skin a cat, but we really just, I don't know if it's because we're stubborn boss bitches, but it was just a fun
space, man. We had some fun days down there hanging out outside with all the crazies going by, and just it was a cool start and a cool time that won't happen again. And
not for a long time.
Yeah, not for a long
time.
Not
until the price of rent leases comes down.
And that's never going to happen. Or we start making way more money doing way more things. So I'd like to thank you again so much for showing up, and look forward to talking to you again in the future. Thank you so much for listening to my podcast, The Guy Vancouver. We'll catch you again. Thanks. Bye.